Hi, it's Kathleen, and I'm just here to give you a brief overview of some of the origins of these words of the jargon that you'll hear in the office. So we'll start with career cushioning. Now, this and the next three or four, actually six, um, bits of jargon really began during the pandemic when people moved from working strictly in the office to working strictly at home. And people began to, as people were working at home, they realized, oh, wait a minute, the pace is better. I have more autonomy. I can set my own pace and my schedule. There's nobody breathing down my neck, wondering what I'm doing and, when it's going to get done or how I'm doing it. So people began to really think about the quality of their environment when they were in the office. And so um, the thought of going back into that environment became really, people began to stand up for themselves and say, wait a minute, I don't like that. So I want something different. And so out of that were born many of these terms. And so career cushioning, the first one, is one of them, where people were realizing that I don't have to put up with this situation, so I'm going to go apply for as many jobs as I think might be a better fit for me. And so they would people apply for many jobs, so that they have the option to quit at any time. So they're giving themselves a cushion so that they have something to land on. You don't just you know you, acrobats or stuntmen don't just jump off a building or jump off the balance beam without cushioning underneath them to protect them and save them when they fall. So that's what career cushioning is, and it's basically where it came from. The next one, quiet quitting, that one is really, it's sort of a defiant term where people say, okay, I don't have a cushion right now. I don't have another job to go to, but I'm not going to, give 100% of myself and have it not be enough and still be asked for more. So I'm just going to do the bare minimum. I'm basically quitting my job without actually leaving the position. I'm not going to care anymore about what I do or how well I do it, as long as I get it done enough to not get fired. That's basically what quiet quitting is. The next one we have is mattering, and that comes out of a mental health issue of, caring for your mental health. Again, people would quit quietly because they felt as though they didn't matter. They made no difference. People above them didn't notice whether they did a good job or a bad job. They were just expected to give everything they had, and it still wasn't enough. So they didn't matter. So that's where companies are now starting to realize that, wait a minute, our employees are our best, and really our best resource, and really the only reason we're in business, because if we have no employees to help us do our job and get the products out there or the services out there to our customers, then we're nowhere. We can't satisfy our commitments, and so our customers will leave us. So we won't have a job. We won't have a business if we don't have employees. And for me, as someone who has been in corporate relations for the past 40 years, um, roughly, my whole focus was that the way a company treats its employees is the way those employees then treat their customers. And having been on the front lines of that, I saw it all the time with my coworkers and other companies that I dealt with. So really mattering is big deal. Your employees need to feel as though their contributions make a difference and that you see that they make a difference if you're the employer. So anyway, mattering. So the next one we have is paper ceiling. Now that comes from the fact that the ceiling, you can't go any higher than where the ceiling is. And so your paper ceiling deals with your degrees and your qualifications for the job. Another jargon I'm going to throw in here is a paper trail. So you need the certifications and the diplomas to hand them to say that these are my qualifications and I can prove it. So that's the paper ceiling. So if the ceiling comes in where if you don't have those bits of paper to prove that you have the experience, it's very hard to get beyond that ceiling to the next level. So that's where that comes in. And that's where learning English comes in. You have another piece of paper that helps raise that ceiling and helps you get to the next floor. So the next word that we have is, you're going to hear this a couple of ways. I tend to say productivity, paranoia, but you'll more than likely hear productivity, paranoia. It's an old habit. It was hard for me to say that. So, and what that is that it's the fear, which is where the paranoia comes in. It's that fear that you're not producing enough. Either if you're the company owner, that you're not either producing enough product or services, you're not giving your best or being productive enough in your everyday workings. So it's really the fear of not producing enough, whether it's the actual physical product, whether it's whether it's the content. So many online workers and companies, actually, you're so pressed and pressured to produce content. So you have to be productive. You have to always be putting something out. And you're paranoid. You're so afraid that you're not putting out enough stuff. So that's that one. Now, quiet firing is the next one in line. And that is actually, so that's coincides with the quiet quitting. So if an employer does not want you as an employee anymore, there's contention, there's whatever it is that you don't get along, maybe the company or the manager is threatened by how good you're doing and they're afraid that you'll get their job or you'll be hired into their job. It's an aggressive term, and it is where the manager or the company makes your life so miserable that you just want to quit and you end up quitting. Not because you're doing a bad job, or, well, it could be, but usually it's a competition type of a thing. But there may be a thing where, an issue where you're not doing your job well, but they don't want to say, ooh, we're going to fire you. So they make your life miserable so that you will then quit. So they're not the culprits, but you are. So there's that one. Now, the next one is ASAP, or ASAP is how you pronounce it. And that really just means as soon as possible. So it just, because Americans speak so quickly and we just like to get the job done, we shorten everything and we love to put initials to our things that, our things that we say all the time. So let's get that to me ASAP, or I need that ASAP is a phrase there that you'll hear. The next one is touch base, or to touch base with someone. Like, I need to touch base with Susie because she has the next piece of the puzzle that I need to get this product out. Or let's touch base out over lunch because we haven't seen each other for a while. So that's that. And it comes from baseball, where you have to touch the base. You have to touch first base in order to be credited with having achieved that base, that goal, before you can move on to second base and third base and then home. So you have to touch base, tag in, so that you get credit for that. And so I guess touching base, when you think about it in terms of getting caught up, it's an interesting correlation, because that's not really, you just have to touch it. That's all. So I'm not sure there's an actual one-to-one correlation, but that's where it comes from. So then the next one we have is circle back, or to circle back. And this one is not, it's not a very popular one. Well, let's correct that. It's used all the time, but it irritates a lot of people. You know, and it just means to, you come your 360 degrees. You start here, you do your job, and then you come back to your starting point in your circle. So that just means, okay, we're going to do our job, and then we're going to come back to this point and talk about what we've done, things like that. But it's, try not to use it, because it irritates so many people. I think because it's just been overused. So the next one we have is to debrief, or to have a debriefing. And that just means, it comes from the term brief, which it has many meanings, but the one that applies here really is, it's a set of instructions that you're given at the beginning of your task. It's used a lot in the military. Before your mission, you get briefed on what you need to do and what needs to be accomplished. So when you come back from that mission, when you finish that task, you now debrief. So you, the person who has accomplished the mission, now gives the instructions, gives the summary to the person who's assigned you the job. So that's where that comes from. I've put the infinitives in there, the two, because they are verbs, and so you need to see the full form. And oftentimes you will say, "Oh, I need to debrief on that project, because I need to know where we stand," or what have you. So you'll hear it in those different ways. So the next one we have is TBD, or to be determined, and that just simply means that we haven't decided what the scheduling date is, or what all of the details of the project are. So it will be determined at a later date, but just know that it's out there. Now, this can be a red flag if you're looking for a job, and you see in the job description that the schedule is to be determined. That means that people are leaving themselves open to not committing to a schedule, and maybe trying to get the most out of you that they can, and being able to say, hey, but it was in the description that it wasn't settled yet, so you can't really say anything because you accepted that. So it can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing. So just know how to process it in the circumstances. And the final one is red flag. So, and that comes from the storm warning. So in coastal towns, you'll, if there's like a hurricane coming, there's a red flag, and it has a black square in the middle of it. And that means danger, watch out, there will be trouble if you go out to sea right now. And so that's where red flag comes from. It's a warning signal that pops up in you that says, wait a minute, I don't think that's a good idea. Or this might cause trouble down the road, or watch out for that person, because there's too many red flags that they're setting off in my consciousness here. So that just means a warning sign. So there we have it. We have all of just a basic understanding of where these terms come from, because it's one thing to know the word and to use it all the time, but if you don't understand it, then it, you're not going to be using it correctly, number one. Number two, this is going to make you, it's going to reflect poorly on you, and it's going to take away any credibility that you have. Now, just a side note here about jargon, I don't believe in using it. You're smart, you can figure out your own way to say things. And people tend to use jargon because they're insecure, they want to fit in, and they're afraid to step out and be creative. So I highly recommend not using jargon, and figure out your own way to express your ideas. Sometimes you can't help it, but I suggest avoiding it. But there you go. This is stuff you're going to hear all the time, and so now you know what people are saying, where it comes from, and you know what you can do with it. So okay, hope you have a great day. Enjoy. Bye bye.